Grooveboxes have gotten super popular these days, and in this video we're going to talk about how you select one over the other based on what your needs are and what you want to use it for. Grooveboxes are really flexible. They can do all sorts of different things. Some of them are pretty specific and some of them are very flexible. There's no such thing as the best Groovebox because it all comes down to you. It comes down to what your workflow is or what your needs are and what you actually want to use it for. In this video, we're going to talk about which Grooveboxes are the best in different categories based on portability, based on flexibility, based on what they do really, really well. And hopefully this video will help you decide which is the best Groovebox out there for you and for what your needs are. This isn't going to be an in-depth tutorial on any one particular Groovebox. There are some great ones out there. I'll link some down in the description below, some that I've done and some that others have done. I personally love to watch all of the loop hop videos as soon as something comes out and really learn the ins and outs of something, so I would send you over to that direction for the details about a lot of these. Or also Gabe Miller does a great job of going over Grooveboxes in detail in the workflows that work best for him. So we're going to talk through different general categories of use cases of Grooveboxes and which Grooveboxes fall within those categories. Then once we've gone through those categories, we'll go back and I'll give you a recommendation at each one and some of the qualifiers about why that's the recommendation in each individual category. Then as we get to the end of the video, we're going to talk about different use cases as far as the type of music that you're making and the workflow that you have and different types of workflow that are better suited to different machines and which machines are best suited to those different workflows and why. All right, so let's get into it. So the first general category of Grooveboxes is the ones that I would call ultra portable. These are ones that are all battery powered. They're all designed to go in a backpack. You can take them anywhere, and they're basically designed for portable beat making anywhere for fun. These range in size from the Orba, which is just a handheld, something that you can mess around with on a bus, on a train, commuting, whatever, at about $100, all the way up to the Deluge from Synstrom Audio, and which is very full featured, and we'll talk a little bit more about this one later. The key similarity between these is that they're both ultra portable. They're both pretty easy to carry around. You can stick them in a backpack, and they're both totally battery powered. So you can get a lot of fun out of these anywhere without having to plug them in. The Orba starts off at about $100, and the Deluge is just over $1,000, depending on how much it costs shipping and tax and things like that for your area. In that same category of ultra portable battery powered, designed for beat making anywhere for fun, you've also got things like the Circuit Tracks, the Circuit Rhythm, the Pocket Operators from Teenage Engineering, as well as the OP1 from Teenage Engineering on the much higher end. Those are about $1,100 now. I think they just dropped down the price just a little bit. And those are very, very full featured, but ultra portable, so you can take them anywhere with a really long battery life. The next general category of Grooveboxes out there is what I would call portable. If the first ones were ultra portable, these are portable, and these are more kind of powerhouse Grooveboxes. These are very full featured, and they're really geared towards music producers who are producing and finishing tracks regularly, putting tracks out regularly, to use as something to sketch tracks on to be finished later in a DAW-less setup or being brought into a DAW to flesh out into whole tracks. So a key part of each one of these is that they integrate very well with other equipment, and the files can be easily exported directly into a DAW or onto an SD card and into a DAW. And you'll notice there is quite a bit of overlap between these groups, and often you'll find that the ones that are the most full featured in one group may be the less full featured, but also fall into the next category up. And that's why in this portable category, the first one that I would talk about is the Novation Circuit. Circuit is ultra portable, which is why it was in the first category, but it is way more full featured. So it does belong in this category. It's a great way to sketch out tracks, and then you can bring them back in and finish them out in a DAW. With the tracks, you can actually connect via MIDI, and you can run other synthesizers in your home studio setup or in a DAW-less setup. So even though the Circuit Tracks is on the lower end of the price range, it is very, very full featured. And I did a video all about the Circuit Tracks, which I'll link down below, and it gives you an idea of just how much bang you get for the buck with this machine. It's absolutely phenomenal for the price. I don't think anything touches it at its price point. They're coming in right now at about $400, kind of depending on where you get them. Also in this portable powerhouse category, and keep in mind, some of these are battery powered, some of them aren't, and that's why they're not all in that first category. You would have some other instruments like the Roland MC101, the Digitact and the Digatone from Electron, the Synthstrom Deluge, and the OP1, which we talked about before, although the OP1 I would put in this category with kind of an asterisk, because even though it is extremely full featured and there's plenty to do with an OP1 for experienced music producers, it doesn't have the kind of ease of connectability, and it doesn't play as well with others as a lot of the others in this category. So it's a little bit more difficult to get your ideas down. It only has a 4-track recorder, which is great if you want to limit yourself and kind of come up with some creative solutions in a limited environment. But getting that information back into a DAW or into a DAW-less setup and connecting it with other equipment is not as easy to do. It is possible, but it's not as easy to do as it is with some of the others in this category. I would also include in this portable powerhouse category machines like the Electron Octatrack, which you see here, and the Akai MPC Live and Live 2, and the MPC 1. All of those within that category are all very, very full featured and what I would call portable, not ultra portable. And they, some are battery powered, so like the MPC Live and Live 2 run off of batteries, the MPC 1 does not. Different feature sets, kind of depending on what the needs are of the individual producer that's going to be using them, but they're all really, really capable machines. One hesitation I do have about the MPC Live and Live 2 in this category is this is the portable category, and they are a bit larger and a bit heavier than the other machines that are in this category. So a little bit of an asterisk there, very full featured, but a little less portable than some of the others. So if you're going to put it in a backpack, you're just going to need a bigger backpack. So the next category is a bit of a controversial one. It's what we call a DAW in a box. Now, there's a lot of people out there that say that a DAW in a box doesn't exist. Then there's a whole other camp of people that say, well, if a DAW in a box does exist, is it really DAW-less if you're using a DAW in a box? Honestly, it doesn't make any difference. Use whatever you want to use, make the music that you love, use whatever you kind of gel with as far as workflow goes. That's what's going to be the most important thing. And in the category of DAW in a box, I feel like in 2021, there's really only 2 competitors out there that I've seen and that I've had a chance to play with. And that is the Machine Plus and this guy right here, which is the Akai MPC Live 2, or the MPC Live, I would also put in this category as well. The reason why I say that, the reason why I feel like there really are only 2 kind of competitors out there for this DAW in a box position in the Groovebox universe right now is because the MPC Live and the Machine Plus are the only 2 that I've seen that are capable of producing songs end to end with a similar workflow that you would use in a DAW, in a digital audio workstation, in your computer, but doing it in a single box, hardware separate from a computer. Now, even that's a little controversial on its own, because the fact that you can do all of these things means that they really are a computer. So are you really going DAW-less if you use one of these or not? Again, I don't really care, but a category unto itself really is the DAW in the box category. Now, what would you want to use that for? Why would you want a DAW in a box? Well, if you're trying to get away from your computer, say for example, in your day job like I do, you end up staring at a computer screen all the time and you're working on a computer keyboard with a mouse all the time, and you want to get away from that when you're in your music making world. So you want to make music on something that is more tactile. Even though it is a computer, it's more tactile. It's got buttons and knobs and controls that are built right into it. Now, it is possible to use MIDI controllers with a laptop, to use MIDI controllers with an iPad, and that isn't all that different at its core. to either of these DAW in a box. What they are is specialized pieces of hardware with specialized software that's designed just for making music. So it's not something that you can check your email on. It's not something that you're going to go surf the internet on. So it does mean that these are musical instruments, even if they are computerized musical instruments. Now, that DAW in the box category is not for everyone, but it is important to include here because they are definitely groove boxes in that realm of groove boxes. They are on the pricier side, and a lot of that is because they do a lot more than most of the things that they're competing with. They have better screens, they have better interaction, they've got a better user interface, they've got better quality hardware and things like that than a lot of the other groove boxes that are out there. Very capable and a lot of fun to use if that's the type of workflow that you're looking for. The last kind of general category for groove boxes and like use case general categories is for those people who are looking for something that will act as kind of a hardware centerpiece to an overall setup, whether that's a live performance setup, whether that is a music production setup or a music studio, but they're looking for a brain or a central hardware centerpiece to that. And just like with the other categories, there's a bunch of overlap, and it really kind of depends on workflow, which is what we're going to talk about next, as well as the style of music that you're making, which we'll also talk about next. And the final piece is really the price that you're looking to pay. So you can use something like a Circuit Tracks at $400 as the centerpiece, as the brain of your DAW setup or your live setup. You will have certain limitations as far as inputs and outputs, as far as the number of channels, as far as the things that the sequencer can do, but you're also going to find a lot of ease of use, and you're going to have that really attractive price point. Then you have the MPC products like the MPC One, MPC Live. MPC One is actually much more suited for being the centerpiece of a hardware setup or a studio because it's not battery powered like the MPC Live and Live 2 are. You also have a lot of the classics out there like the Electron Digitact. You have the Synthstrom Deluge, which we talked about a little bit before. You've got the Roland MC707, which is another fantastic machine. Not super portable and not really a DAW in a box, but it is great for the centerpiece of a live setup or the centerpiece of a hardware studio setup. And then some of the others that we've already mentioned, you've got the Octatrack, you've got the MPC Live, and you've got the Machine Plus. So any of those will be able to be kind of that centerpiece. So now it's going to come down to the type of music that you're going to make and the workflow that you use to make that music. So in each of these categories, which is my personal favorite and why? Well, first let's start off with the ultra portable, the battery powered category. And for me, that goes to the Synthstrom Deluge. This is the most bang for the buck in a battery powered portable unit that you can get on the market today. I would say that the OP1 is also very capable, but the difference for me is the connectability. If you notice here, you've got a ton of different ways that you can connect this to your studio setup, to your hardware setup when you get home. You've got full-size MIDI in and out, you've got CV gate outputs, you've got left and right stereo outputs, you've got a headphone out, you've got a line in, so just a ton of connectivity. You can also connect this via USB. So that combined with the fact that this has internal synth engines, it's got a very capable sequencer. I won't go too in depth into the Deluge. I did a whole video on the Deluge, which I'll link down in the description below, going through why this is my favorite ultra portable piece of gear. The Deluge also gets compared a lot to the Circuit Tracks, and people say, well, why would you pay twice as much for the Deluge of the Circuit Tracks when it's very capable? I agree, and it does come down kind of to price point at some point, but you do get quite a bit more with the Deluge. For me, the biggest things that you get are virtually unlimited tracks, meaning that you're just limited by the amount of memory. And also, it's very easy to record something in using one of the internal synth engines into the sequencer. And then if you aren't really into the sound, or if you get back to your studio once you've sketched this out and you've got a hardware synth that's not portable that you would really like to actually do that part, it's very easy to switch from an audio track to a MIDI track and just switch it over, and then you can send the MIDI out to a piece of hardware equipment and have the Deluge control that as well. So for me, it works great as a sketch pad that you can move then into your studio. And that brings us to the second category, the portable powerhouse. no coincidence that the Deluge also wins in this category for me, just because of all of the things that we just discussed. However, there is a little bit stiffer competition, and it kind of does depend on your workflow and what you prefer. I also really love the Electron Digitact in this area as well, as something that you can sketch things out, and then it's very easy to copy and paste over from an audio track to a MIDI track. Then you have 8 MIDI tracks that you can send out to hardware gear once you get back, or you can send into your DAW and control VSTs and all sorts of things. The Overbridge software that connects the Digitact to a DAW is fantastic if you want to sketch on the Digitact and then bring it back into a DAW. Great piece of gear just for those things. So honorable mention to the Digitact, but the Synthstream Deluge is also my favorite in the portable category as a sketchpad. Next, we have the mobile DAW in a box category. You know, only 2 real competitors in this, as we talked about before. And for me, the win goes to the MPC Live. The reason being, the reasons being that first and foremost, the MPC Live is battery powered, so it gives it a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more portability. They both weigh about the same, although the MPC Live is a bit larger. Both very capable. I think the synth engines in the Machine Plus are a bit better. I think the flexibility and the workflow of the MPC is a bit more natural. But both as a DAW in a box work great. I do like the touchscreen in the MPC. I know that that's kind of a point of contention. Some people love it, some people hate it. I do like it. I really like it for being able to edit things once they're in there. I like being able to see things in a grid mode, which is not as easy to do with the Machine Plus. So a lot of pluses and minuses, but I would say for me personally, the winner in the DAW in the box category goes to the MPC Live 2. Now, picking a winner in the last category is a little bit more difficult because we don't have a lot of the same constraints. These things don't have to be portable. They don't have to move around, although they're Grooveboxes. So ultimately you do want them to be able to move around if possible. So it puts us into a little bit of a different place. We're going to talk in just a minute about different types of music and different types of workflows, and that's going to really make up the decision for a lot of people in this category. So I'm going to give you a few winners in this category, and then we'll narrow those down in the next section when we talk about workflow. Once again, I would say the MPC Live, the Live 2, and also the MPC 1 are all winners in this category. They all have the same engine, the same screen. They basically have the same capabilities, just different form factors, some different ways of doing input with different types of buttons. The pads on the MPC 1 are a little bit smaller than they are on the Live and the Live 2. Live 2 has a built-in speaker. Live and Live 2 can both run on battery. The MPC 1 can't, but they all have more or less the same system. So all great as a centerpiece for a studio setup or a live setup. Another great feature about the MPCs is that they have full-size MIDI in and out, and they have the capability to act as a USB host, so you can plug your MIDI controllers directly into them when you're in a home studio setup. So if you want to plug in, a full-size 88-key MIDI keyboard into either one of those or any one of those, you can connect that very easily with a USB cable. If you prefer the machine workflow, the Machine Plus is also a really capable centerpiece with a lot of the same advantages of the Akai's. It's just a bit of a different workflow. So if you're used to that machine workflow, then you absolutely stick with that and go with the Machine Plus. But if you're kind of starting over from scratch, or if you're used to the MPC workflow, you might want to consider one of the MPCs. I'll also include in this category the Octatrack as well, which you see right over here. Really capable centerpiece for a DAW-less setup or a home studio setup with a DAW. It connects very well through MIDI and through audio, although it doesn't have the overbridge connectivity that some of the other Electron machines do. It is very capable for controlling other equipment, especially if you're going to lean towards the hardware setups and the DAW-less setups and less towards controlling your DAW with one of these boxes. And finally, the real winner in this category, and it's hard to call this a Groovebox because it's not really portable, but because it does have exactly the same operating system as some of the others that we mentioned here, I'll mention the MPC X. Now, the MPC X is really designed to be the centerpiece of a studio setup, but it does have exactly the same internals as the MPC 1 and both of the MPC Lives. So Hardware-wise, it's definitely designed to stay in the studio. Software-wise, it's very much like the others. So if the discussion of which Groovebox you should get isn't decided based on these larger scenarios about why you would use one, let's talk a little bit more specifically about workflow and about the type of music that you make and which Grooveboxes are the best for different workflows and different genres. So let's start off with sequencer-based workflows and sequencer-based genres. So if you are a techno or house producer and a lot of what you do is being programmed into a sequencer or being recorded into a sequencer or being sequenced in one way or another, having a really powerful sequencer at the heart of your Groovebox is going to be really important, and having some other features may be a little bit less important. And I would say the same would go for if you're making ambient music as well. And because of that, because the sequencer is kind of at the heart of what you're doing, I would say that anything from Electron, that could be any of the boxes that you see right here, could be the Digitac, could be the Digatone, any of those boxes are going to be great, as well as the Synths from Deluge. Those are really the ones out there that have the fantastic sequencers and the most powerful sequencers. If your workflow is very sample heavy and you're working in a genre that's a bit more performance based, like hip hop and down-tempo music, then you would definitely want to go down the road of the MPCs or the machine. And it kind of depends again on the workflow that you're used to. I think a lot of people that are making hip hop and that are performing it in, that are finger drummers and things like that, are probably already pretty well entrenched into the MPC workflow because they've been kind of the king of this for a long time. So the transition into an MPC1 or an MPC Live is probably going to be really, really easy, and the workflow is going to be a lot more easy to understand. If you come from the machine workflow, if you've been using the machine before they came out with the Machine Plus and before they kind of went into the Groovebox realm, but you were using the software and using the machine controllers, then you're probably going to want to stick with that one. But that's really for things that are more kind of performance-based, pad-based, and really sample-based workflows. Also, if you really are sample-heavy and that is the predominant deciding factor for you, I think that the real kings in this area are any of the Akai MPCs. They've been the kings of sample editing, chopping, manipulating for years and years and years and years. And although there are machines out there like the circuits, like the Octatrack and things like that, that can edit and glitch samples and do some really interesting things, to have really fine control over your samples, I don't think that there's anything out there that comes close to touching the MPC workflow. And a couple of honorable mention deciding factors if you're looking to get a Groovebox. Something that I call the portability to power ratio, meaning the most portable things that are the most powerful. I already mentioned the Synths from Deluge, but the other one that really falls into this category is the Teenage Engineering OP1. It's really hard to find another piece of equipment that is as portable as those two are, that pack as much into them as they do. So if you're looking for that power to portability ratio, the Synths from Deluge and the Teenage Engineering OP1 rule that category. And then I'd be remiss if I didn't give a win to the Novation Circuit Tracks for the budget bang for the buck. I don't know that there's anything out there that gives you a better dollar to capability ratio than the Novation Circuit Tracks and also the Circuit Rhythm. So if price is your biggest deciding factor, the Circuit Tracks is definitely the direction you want to go. At $400, it's hard to beat for sure. So thanks for checking out the video. I hope you got something useful out of this. If you have any questions and I can help you out with it, I'm happy to answer them. Just pop them down into the comments below. I try to respond as much as I possibly can. And I love to hear from everybody about what your favorite pieces of equipment are, what you use them for. And if you're deciding between a couple of them and you're not really sure, I can let you know what I know, which isn't everything, and sometimes it isn't a lot, and sometimes it's a thing that I haven't even used at all, but I'm happy to help out wherever I can. So please ask any of those questions that you have down in the comments below. And if you got something out of this video, give it a like and a thumbs up. It really helps us out with the channel. And if you want some more content like this, I'd love to have you subscribe as well. Thanks very much, and I'll see you in the next video. Cheers.